Good morning. Welcome back. I'm Claire McCormack. Welcome to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. We have 5 candidates for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound in the studio this morning. With me are Liberal Party candidate Selwyn Hicks, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead, NDP candidate James Harris, Stop the Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies, and Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. So we are going to start with our first question. We've got a number here. We're covering things like affordability, energy, education, rural economic development, all kinds of things, homelessness. But we're first going to start with what is top of mind for many people, and that is healthcare. So over 80,000 people in Ontario. Oh, hang on a second. Let's go back. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. There is a need for more primary care physicians and nurses in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. Some hospitals in the riding struggle or fail to keep their emergency departments open, while others like Hanover are having to take on more patients from those sites. Meanwhile, many people don't have a family doctor. What would you do to alleviate the healthcare staffing problem? And we are starting with Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. You've got 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Well, thank you. 42,655 people in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound don't have a family doctor. Liberals will invest $3.1 billion to attract, recruit, retain doctors for every Ontarian in 4 years. As your MPP, I will work hard to keep rural hospitals functional. We will incentivize family doctors to serve in rural communities. The funding formula needs a reboot. We will build 2 new medical schools, doubling the number of spots and residency positions. We'll develop team-based care with evening and weekend support, as well as integrated home care for seniors. We'll speed up the process to integrate 1,200 qualified and experienced internationally trained doctors, and we'll eliminate fax machines and enhance virtual care. We'll implement electronic medical records to allow doctors to focus on patients rather than paperwork, and we'll crack down on Mr. Ford's for-profit healthcare by regulating temporary nursing agencies. We'll bring nurse practitioners into the public system and ban private pay nurse practitioner clinics. Lastly, we'll introduce universal mental health care under OHIP, covering conditions like anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. Our party recognizes that mental health is health.
Thank you very much, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next, we go to Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. The short version of the question: what would you do to alleviate the healthcare staffing problem?
Thank you, Claire. And this is such an important question, and probably the number one question I'm hearing out on the campaign trail. So first of all, this is a question of priorities, right? This is a question of investment. And Doug Ford is investing in the GTA. He's investing in tens of billions of dollars worth of tunnels and highways that we don't need and are not going to be helpful. What we need is investment right here in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound for family healthcare practitioners, for our hospitals, for our emergency rooms. It's a tragedy that they're closing. It's a tragedy that you can't have an emergency after hours in Chesley. You'll have to go over to Hanover. It's unfair to the people who live and pay taxes in that community. And so what we need is to speak to the physicians, to speak to the nurses, to speak to the hospitalists, and listen to them, hear what they need. And I've done that, actually. I've sat down with physicians all across Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound and asked them, what do you need to revitalize rural healthcare? And they have the answers. They know exactly what to do. And what we need is an MPP who will listen to them and bring those ideas to Queen's Park, advocate for them, and invest in healthcare right here in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound.
Thank you, Joel Lowhead, Green Party candidate. Next, we go to NDP candidate James Harris. The short version of the question is, what would you do to alleviate the healthcare staffing problem? You've got 1 minute and 30 seconds, James.
Yeah, thank you. I think when the hospitals in Durham and Chesley were losing their services under the Doug Ford government, the NDP was standing up and decrying it in Queen's Park, and that's the sort of thing that I would love to be able to go to Queen's Park to be able to support, to be able to undo the damage that has happened under the Doug Ford Conservatives. And to do that, the NDP have a plan to get the ball rolling on new family health teams, and we're going to get that started within the first 100 days. We've got a plan to hire 3,500 500 more doctors across the province to put them to work in those health teams. We're going to institute nurse ratios, to make sure nurse to patient ratios, to make sure that people have the confidence that they're going to be able to be looked after by, competent professionals who are paid well, and we're going to, help pay for these things by bringing the nurses back in house and not pay, for for-profit staffing agencies, sometimes double, sometimes more in some cases for the services that the Ontarians have been expecting. So, these are the sorts of things that we want to do with the Ontario NDP, and we'd just like to, I would love an opportunity to do that.
Thanks very much for that. That's NDP candidate James Harris. Next, we go to Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. The question is, what would you do to alleviate the healthcare staffing problem? You've got a minute, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Thanks, Claire. Well, first of all, I would rehire all of the health professionals who were fired during the COVID mandates. Also, incentives for rural physicians, including holistic doctors. And I want to talk about holistic medicine. I think we should be funding preventative health care and alternative medicine. 70% of Canadians use alternative medicine. And osteopathy reduces chronic pain by 40%, decreases opioid use. Homeopathy reduces respiratory infections. We need herbal medicine, which has proven effects on inflammation, heart health, and immunity. There are studies that show that $1 spent on preventative medicine saves 6 to 8 in healthcare costs. Why are we not utilizing and encouraging these practices? We need to reduce pharmaceutical dependency. People are absolutely committed to the pharmaceutical industry and get on a lot of medications. Those counteract each other. There's a lot of problems, especially in mental health with this area. We need to look at funding and research and education, and also funding doctors with holistic education. Why are they not being encouraged to come into our riding? Thank you.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda Party. Next, we have Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Now, I'm going to reread the question for you. There is a need for more primary care physicians and nurses in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. Some hospitals in the riding struggle or fail to keep their emergency departments open, while others like Hanover are having to take on more patients from those sites. Meanwhile, many people don't have a family doctor. What
to $85 billion this year, well above the rate of inflation. We're also training more doctors than ever before, opening 2 new medical schools, including one that is strictly focused on training family doctors. We have also launched the Learn and Stay program, which provides tuition grants to students in nursing programs who commit to working in our rural communities. Some of these graduates are being trained right here at Georgian College in Owen Sound. There are over 80 local students benefiting from this funding. And while doctors and nurses take years to train, we're improving access to care right now. We've expanded the pharmacist's role so they can treat common ailments, keeping 400,000 patients out of our ERs every year. Make no mistake about it. If elected, healthcare will be a significant priority of mine. I look forward to the opportunity to explore how to improve healthcare services in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, PC candidate Paul Vickers. That wraps up our first question of the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario election all candidates debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. We have 6 candidates with us here today. We will go on to the second question, starting with Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. The question is, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening tariffs on Canadian goods. He's also said he wants to make Canada the 51st state. What would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty?
Right. So let me be crystal clear about this. Canada will never be the 51st state. We will always be a sovereign nation. And in fact, if you watched the game last night, I think that Team Canada made the United States the 11th province. But let's also remember that Doug Ford was the largest cheerleader for Donald Trump just a few weeks ago and said that he was 100% happy that Donald Trump was elected, right? We need somebody who will genuinely stand up to Donald Trump and has policies different from Donald Trump, because everything I love about this country and this province and this riding is completely different from Donald Trump's ideas and Doug Ford's ideas. We need to have a strong local economy. We can't have a strong local economy the way that things are going in Doug Ford's Ontario. The cost of living is extremely expensive. Housing has continued to go up. It's still at all-time highs. We need to have a strong local economy by helping our farmers sell locally with strong procurement policies. We need to have a strong Buy Ontario campaign. We need to help small businesses who want to buy and sell locally. That's how we're going to keep our sovereignty. It's so important in these uncertain times that we help our industry, we help our farmers, we help our small businesses help each other.
Thanks very much for that Green Party candidate, Joel Lowhead. Next, we have NDP candidate James Harris. The question is, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening tariffs on Canadian goods. He's also said he wants to make Canada the 51st state. What would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty?
Yeah, we're not becoming the 51st state if I have anything to do with it. Yeah, no. No, I think, I like the Team Canada approach. I'm not too sure what I see Doug Ford doing with his AmCan sort of thing. That to me seems like we're trying to put all our eggs back in the same basket that got us into this trouble that we're here in the first place, So, Team Canada approach. I agree with standing with supporting Canadian tariff response. I think, it's appropriate to respond in kind. When it comes to what we're going to do for people locally, we're going to, make sure that we promote interprovincial cooperation, break down trade barriers, make sure that we promote Buy Ontario. We're going to negotiate with the joint federal provincial income assistance program to support people who are impacted by tariffs. We're going to reinvest in training, for those people. These are the sorts of things we're going to do. We're going to definitely try to make inroads in making new markets, both across different provinces and out to the world. That's going to be how we're going to deal with this tariff thing.
Thanks very much for that, NDP candidate James Harris. Next, we have Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. The question, short version, is what would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty?
Well, first of all, Team Canada is a very new slogan, and you might remember that our Prime Minister had said that we have no national identity. We put ourselves in this mess. And so I think Trump's warning to Canada is exactly that. Shape up and get our house in order. So no matter what you think about Trump, we now have a border czar. We should have had that years ago. Illegal immigration should have been stopped. Now, that's not on the Conservatives at this point, but we need all of the things looked at that have started to get opened up. The fentanyl problem, the drug problem, and we need to convict criminals. We need to look at the rule of law and apply it. But for Ontario, we lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs since 2000. We need to increase domestic production. Canada imports over $30 billion in agricultural products annually. We need to shift to local production. We have the ability, and it could reduce the dependency. We also need to look at interprovincial trade. So now everyone's talking about interprovincial trade. That wasn't even on the books hardly before Trump come down with the tariffs. So the tariffs are, to me, a wake-up call. I don't think retaliatory tariffs are really in our best interest, but we'll see how that works. I think negotiation would have gone a long, long way, and they should have been down talking to Trump way before the tariffs were applied.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. Next is Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. What would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty?
First of all, let me say I'm a proud Canadian. I don't worry about Mr. Trump so much because it's just a tactic, and we should never have reacted the way we did with what he said. I'm more concerned about putting people first. So The New Blue Party is more interested in develop our economy and giving people the rights to choose what they want to do for the rest of their lives here. Let's build our economy. Let's figure out ways that we can make people a little freer here. That's how I see it right now.
Thanks for that, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. What would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty?
Thanks, Claire. Ever since President Trump was reelected, we have seen threats to our economy and even to our nation's sovereignty. This is unacceptable, and Ontario must stand up. Our Ontario PC team has done exactly that. Premier Ford has taken a leadership role in this fight, standing up for Ontario both at home and in the United States. We have announced that if the United States place tariffs on Canadian goods, we will limit the ability of U.S. companies to win Ontario government contracts, get rid of American liquor in our liquor stores, and even cancel the $100 million contract with Starlink. Elon Musk's internet provider, we are committed to standing up for Ontario against unfair American tariffs if these should go through. But we cannot be naive. The only thing predictable about Trump is that he is unpredictable. That's why we need a strong mandate to stand up for Ontario businesses and the livelihoods of Ontarians. Simply put, if tariffs are imposed, many Ontarians will lose their jobs, our local farmers and business people will struggle to make ends meet, and our economy will indeed suffer. This is a serious matter. And if these unfair tariffs are imposed, we have a plan to respond. This includes increasing our $200 billion infrastructure plan to put even more Ontarians to work, helping build the future of our province for generations to come.
Thanks very much, PC candidate Paul Vickers. One of the things I forgot to do with the first question was to offer an opportunity for a rebuttal. So I'll do that now for this question. Then we'll figure out during the break if anybody would like to add anything on the sovereignty question now. You can take 30 seconds if you like.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Someone hasn't spoke yet.
Mr. Hicks hasn't spoke yet.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm doing a great job. Selwyn
You're
Hicks.
doing well. It's all good.
Selwyn Hicks, for the question, what would you do as an MPP to help protect our economy and sovereignty? Apologies. Go right ahead. You have a minute, 30 seconds.
So can you trust a premier to stand up to Trump when he's made it very clear that Trump is, quote, his guy? Can you trust a premier who ilks deals with Elon Musk to stand up for Ontario's interests? Well, I don't. An MPP worth their salt would not have started to plan for tariffs on the eve of their announcement. Establishing a robust social safety net could have made an impact less severe. We have all of our eggs in the battery market, and little thought has been given to diversification. We're already in the midst of a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, and an affordability crisis, all occurring under Ford's watch. Now we have to tackle all those challenges on top of the threat of tariffs. Liberals will establish a fight tariffs fund to provide low-interest loans for Ontario businesses. We will prioritize infrastructure investment in hospitals, roads, schools, and transit. We will ensure that Ontario taxpayer dollars support local businesses and jobs by excluding American companies like Elon Musk's Starlink. And lastly, we will work with other provinces to remove interprovincial trade barriers.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Okay, now if anybody would like to add anything, there's a 30-second opportunity for you to take if you would like to add anything on that topic. And Vincent Grimaldi from the New Blue Party, go ahead.
With regards to Mr. Trump, all he wants is immigration and the fentanyl to stop. And it should have never started in the first place. This should have been gone long ago. And to say that there's something wrong with Starlink is insane. Our farmers need communication. That's how their equipment works. That's how their GPS stuff works. It's insane. I disagree with a lot of what was said here.
And that's the 30 seconds for you there. There is an opportunity at the very end to put in your last statement. We will take our first... I'm sorry, Selwyn Hicks.
I don't mind chiming in on that because he addressed me talking about Starlink. What about Telesat? Telesat provides the same service, and they have operations right here in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. That's what I'm talking about. I favor Canadian companies.
Good point.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next, we have a rebuttal from NDP candidate James Harris. Go ahead.
Yeah, just with regards to Doug being the one that we want to be, doing the whole tariff negotiation thing. I think he had a majority in the legislature. He could have passed any bills he needed to cope with any expected tariff impacts. He could have shown us how tough he could have been in a difficult situation as a negotiator, as a deal maker, and then let us vote in September 2026 after judging his record. Instead, he cost us nearly $190 million on a snap election.
Thank you, NDP candidate James Harris. Next, we'll go to Green Party candidate Joel Lohead. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you, Claire. And so when I say a local procurement policy, what I mean is that it should be a lot easier for us to get our own products to our own markets here. So there should be lower taxes for Ontario produce when you're producing it, and it should be more profitable for farmers and for value-added producers here in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound in Ontario to make sure that your products get to our market. It should be very difficult to buy American beef, American pork, American apples, for example, in Meaford.
Thanks very much, Green Party candidate Joel Lohead. And Paul Vickers, PC candidate, go ahead with 30 seconds.
Yep, thank you, Claire. Yeah, James, I think you're missing the point, though. We need to align our mandate with Trump's mandate. We don't want to go a year and a half into this negotiation with Trump and then have to stop and call an election. It's important to actually have everything lined up. Now we know Trump knows who he's going to be dealing with, who he's going to be negotiating with for the next 4 years.
Thank you very much. That concludes the first section of our debate here. We'll take our first break. You're listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce.
Is there any way of...
Good morning. Welcome back to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. I'm Claire McCormack. I have 6 local candidates here with me. We've covered the first 2 questions, but one of the things that we didn't cover in the first question, which was essentially what would you do to alleviate the healthcare staffing problem, was an opportunity for rebuttals or additional thoughts from each candidate. So I'd like to give everyone the opportunity to take advantage of that now, if you would like.
I can start.
Okay, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that I believe that there could be an expanded role for pharmacists, nurses, and of course, one of my favorite programs, the paramedic outreach program, because they know who the frequent flyers are. They do preventative medicine, and they make sure that these people aren't landing into the emergency wards, which is very, very expensive.
Thank you. Go ahead, PC candidate Paul Vickers.
Thank you. Selwyn, I'd like to challenge you on your statement of 42,000 people not having a medical doctor in this riding. There's about 110, 113,000 people total in our riding. So that you're claiming that there's 40% of the people don't have doctors in our riding. I just wonder if there's any way of fact checking that figure.
May I respond?
And the other part about the pharmacists, we've already started that. We've allowed pharmacists to. Thank you, Claire.
And that's time. I'll give you an opportunity to respond at the very end. There's a kind of an open question for that. Okay, let's go on to our third question. Housing affordability continues to be a challenge for many. What regulatory approach, if any, would you advocate for in government to help make home ownership more accessible? And the first candidate is James Harris from the NDP.
Thank you very much. And I'm excited to communicate that we have, a costed Homes Ontario plan, which is the largest, home building plan in generations, that where we aim to get 1.5 million new homes in Ontario over the next 10 years. We're going to do that. One of the things we're going to do with that is we're going to make sure that 300,000 of them, of those homes, are going to be permanently affordable, nonprofit, cooperative housing. We're going to make sure that there are grants, low cost financing available to make sure these kind of projects are out there so that people can find affordable and accessible homes, where we don't have to worry about the rents going up or the prices being exorbitant. This is the sort of thing that we're committed to with the Ontario NDP.
Thanks very much, NDP candidate James Harris. Next, we have Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. The question: housing affordability continues to be a challenge for many. What regulatory approach, if any, would you advocate for in government to help make home ownership more accessible?
Well, the first thing I would do is crack down on foreign investors. And investors actually own 40% of Ontario's new homes. We need to have that private home ownership. Also, I would really encourage multifamily homes. Build homes where their parent and adult children and grandchildren can have separate places to live, but the same home. That really helps in the intergenerational care with the elderly. And if we could encourage that, I think that would be something that many, many families would really enjoy doing. Cooperative housing programs keep the rent below market rates, and zoning reform. We talked about this the other night. Zoning reform could increase supply by 25% in small towns. So I think we need to look very holistically at this, because the average house price in Ontario right now is $850,000. This is why young people just have not a chance of having home ownership. The other thing is to actually build homes, and I talked about this, on every 100-acre farm, and include maybe rent to own the home, rent to own the farm, learn the skills needed. We really need to incorporate some community thought into this and making these homes more affordable.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda Party. Next, we have Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. The question: what regulatory approach, if any, would you advocate for in government to help make home ownership more accessible? Go ahead.
I think we're going to take the new Blue Party takes a common sense approach to this. Control immigration, relocate some tax money into infrastructure for building homes, and loosen up some of the regulatory rules for home building. On top of that, we should make some reservations for young people to build, say, tiny homes, or loosening up some land where they can migrate to have these homes to start their lives.
Thank you, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is PC candidate Paul Vickers. The question, what regulatory approach, if any, would you advocate for in government to help make home ownership more accessible?
Thanks, Claire. Housing affordability is the challenge of this generation. Whether you're a young couple trying to buy your first home, a senior looking to downsize, or a hardworking renter trying to keep up, the cost of housing has gotten out of control. That's why our PC government is taking real action to get more homes built faster. We've committed to building 1.5 million new homes over the next decade, because the only way to bring prices down is to increase the supply. We're putting our money where our mouth is by eliminating the PST on eligible new rentals. We know housing requires infrastructure, and we have helped municipalities through the Housing Enabling Water System Fund to build the water and wastewater infrastructure needed to support new housing. We have seen examples of this in our own riding. Owen Sound and Dundalk have each received funding from the province to enable 4,000 new housing units to be built. We're also eliminating development charges on affordable housing units, making it cheaper and faster to build the homes that working families need. We are also making it easier to build more homes by reducing red tape in the planning process. It's going to take all hands on deck, but we're making sure Ontario has access to homes that they can actually afford.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Next, we have Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks.
Well, thank you. Doug Ford promised to build 1.5 million homes, and he didn't get it done. The Get It Done guy has overseen the fewest new housing starts in Canada, and the PCs have missed every single housing target that they have set. New housing builds are down 15%. The price of an average Ontario home has increased 47% on his watch. Our rural youth are unable to afford even the down payment on a new home. Liberals will eliminate the provincial land transfer tax for first-time buyers, for seniors downsizing, and for non-profit home builders, saving buyers an average of $13,500 off the cost of a new home. We're going to scrap development charges on new middle-class housing, which can add up to $170,000 per home. We're going to develop the Better Communities Fund, where the province invests in and benefits from sustainable municipal growth. We're going to introduce fair, phased-in rent control. We're going to fix the landlord-tenant board so that disputes will be resolved over 2 months. It's terrible what's happening there. We're going to establish rental emergency support for tenants fund to help vulnerable tenants during financial emergencies.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next, we have Green Party candidate Joel Lohead.
Thank you, Claire. So first off, we need to recognize that Doug Ford's approach is not working whatsoever. Even though he says it's the More Homes Built Faster Act, they're not being faster. And when they are built, they're being built onto farmland, destroying our prime agricultural land in Ontario, which we have very little of and is extremely precious, to the tune of 320 acres per day. We've lost 800,000 acres of farmland since Doug Ford first took office. So we don't need to build the types of homes that sprawl onto farmland that people can't afford, over $700,000 per house. We need to build the types of homes that people can actually afford. That means building them in urban areas, on brownfield, and in neighborhoods that people actually want to live in, that are caring and connected communities. Means changing provincial legislation so that we have zoning policies that allows for low-rise apartments, affordable rentals, and small houses in downtown areas. It creates both the conditions for housing to be genuinely affordable again, and it has the added benefit of reducing congestion and revitalizing downtowns for a strong local economy. And that's what the Greens will do.
Thank you, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Now there's an opportunity for 30-second rebuttals or additions, and it looks like James Harris from the NDP would like one. Go ahead.
Absolutely. A couple of things that I wanted to add is that, some of the things that we're going to be doing is making sure that things like fourplexes are available are as of right in neighborhoods, and also we're going to do things like limit short-term rentals to your primary residences, freeing up a lot of short-term residences or rentals to become long-term rentals.
That was NDP candidate James Harris. Next is PC candidate Paul Vickers.
Thanks, Claire. So I will stand behind the PC plan. Our approach was to build 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. Also, we've introduced as of right legislation for 3 houses, 3 additional residents. 3 additional residences on each lot. So we've already done a lot of this. You wanted up to 4. We got at least to 3, James. So we are making a difference.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed agenda. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I live just outside of Dundalk on a farm, and I can tell you that the new subdivisions there's lots of new homes in there, but they are large homes, unaffordable to the local residents. There are no local residents in there. It's individuals and families that have migrated mostly from the city. Not a problem with that, but these are not affordable homes that have been built in the town of Dundalk. And we have 3 new subdivisions. Now what I'm seeing, there are tons of these homes for sale. Who's going to buy them?
And that's time. Thank you. Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed agenda. Go ahead, Joel Lowhead from the Green Party.
Right. So I'll say that Doug Ford's only good policy is triplexes as of right, as far as I can tell. But that still isn't enough because they're not being built, because it's still too difficult for municipalities to allow them. So that needs to be incentivized and it needs to be helped out. We need to have an infrastructure fund for municipalities so that we can densify in urban areas, so that we can provide actual affordable housing for people.
Thank you, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Go ahead.
From the New Blue Party, we've done a little bit of homework on recycle, reuse ideas. And there are plenty of recyclable buildings that are vacant right now that we can use to house people. And I'd like to see a lot more of that happen.
Thank you, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. We will take a break. You are listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce on AM 560 CFOS. Welcome back to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. I'm Claire McCormack. I have 6 candidates here with me today, and we will start the next question with Stop the New Sex Ed agenda candidate Ann Gillies. The question is, the average household is finding it harder to make ends meet. More people are relying on food banks. What would you advocate for as MPP to make life more affordable for residents in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to start with a statement that Paul Vickers said at the last All Candidates meeting, and he said that the economy is booming. Well, that's not really true. The food bank usage in Ontario rose by 47% between 2022 and 2024. That's 1 in 7 Ontarians now relying on food assistance. So back to encouraging local food production, field to fork programs that encourage farmers and landowners to actually have local and sell local. I would also encourage helping families to grow their own. There are a lot of young people now with food insecurity thoughts and are thinking back to the land. How do we grow our own? So we need to help them teach that, train them in that. Community gardens, cooperatives. We don't need to increase social service providing care, and as such, we need to increase the idea of self-reliance and encourage people to do that. That doesn't mean they can't go to food banks when they need to, but let's have these young people taught skills, help them to really produce, even in a little way, some of their own things. It gives them a sense of ownership of that as well.
Thank you. That is all the time. That is Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. Next is New Blue candidate Vince Grimaldi. The question is, the average household is finding it harder to make ends meet. What would you advocate for as MPP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound to make life more affordable?
Again, there's a few things I would be looking at. First of all, responsible government. Tax relocation. A lot of the carbon tax stuff could go away. Reduce HST, and then look at training for young people. I think there should be more food hubs here. I think the farm to table idea should be brought up. And homesteading. Courses in homesteading are probably one of the best things that we can do for people right now.
Thank you, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. As MPP, what would you do to make life more affordable for residents of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
Thanks, Claire. Life has gotten more expensive, and families across Ontario are feeling the squeeze, whether it's at the gas pumps, the grocery stores, or in your monthly bills. Every dollar counts. That's why our PC government is taking real action to put money back in your pocket. I will highlight some of the actions our PC team has taken to make life more affordable for you. Reducing the gas tax by 10 cents a litre, a move we will make permanent if re-elected. We have cut income tax for 1.1 million low-income workers. Reducing child care fees in partnership with the federal government, saving families as much as $12,000 per year. Provide every Ontarian with $200 to help out in these times, meaning an extra $1,000 in the pockets of a family of 5. Scrapped license plate sticker fees, froze the fees for driver's license renewals, and extended the 10% tuition cut for post-secondary students for this coming school year. And here's the difference with our PC team. We have never raised personal income taxes nor small business taxes, not even once. While many struggle with affordability, what they need, we're doing what we can to make life more affordable for them. We're going to keep working to keep costs down and make sure Ontario remains a place where families can thrive.
Thank you, Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. Next is Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. The short version of the question is, MPP, what would you do to make life more affordable for residents in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
Well, thank you. Liberals will eliminate the 8% provincial component of HST on hydro and home heating bills. We're going to double ODSP benefits and index them to inflation. 500,000 people rely on ODSP, which currently provides a maximum of only $1,368 per month. It simply isn't enough to live on. We're going to eliminate the interest on OSAP loans, and we'll also delay repayment graduates have to make to at least the time when they're earning $50,000 per year. We're going to cut the small business tax rate by half from the current 3.2% to 1.6%. This will result in savings of $18,000 per year for 275,000 small businesses in Ontario. We're going to lower, by the way, the personal income tax rate for middle-class families by 22%. So it'll go from 9.15 to 7.15. And this will benefit almost half of all taxpayers in Ontario with an average savings of $950 annually. Since my election as warden, I have been attending meetings and following the work of the Grey Bruce Poverty Task Force. As a person with lived experience with poverty, this is my favorite advocacy group. Shortly after my election as MPP, I will be reaching out to this group to talk to them about how I can best use my position to advocate for their three key asks, which are strengthening income supports, investing in quality jobs, and expanding supportive and transitional housing.
That's time. Thank you. That was Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next, we have Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. What would you do to make life more affordable for residents in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
So after 7 years of Doug Ford in office, life has never been more expensive and our public services have never been worse. So the policies aren't working. So much of the cost of living in Ontario is the cost of housing in Ontario. We know that. It's crushing. It makes up almost half of household income. Again, we need to build the types of homes that people, especially young people, can actually afford in communities that they actually want to live in, revitalizing downtown, building into urban areas. That's the first thing the Greens are going to do, and we have a very robust and very clear and very costed plan for that. We're also going to bring down income tax for low-income families, households under $100,000. And we can save families up to almost $2,000 per year doing exactly that. And these, rebates for hydro and the license sticker removal that the Ford government brought about, those are equal across the board to millionaires as well as to low-income families. And that's not fair. We need to make sure that we're applying those types of cost savings directly to the people who need it most in this province. So we're going to do that. We're going to remove those programs for the wealthiest in the society, and we're going to redistribute that to the people who are struggling to get by in Doug Ford's Ontario. That's what we're going to do as the Green Party, and that's why I want to be your MPP.
Thank you, Joel Lowhead from the Green Party. Next, we have NDP candidate James Harris. What would you do to make life more affordable for residents in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
Oh, just give me the chance. You know, one of the things that we're doing here with the Ontario NDP is we're trying to make sure that for everybody who's struggling to put food on the table, that there's a monthly grocery rebate that puts money back in your pocket every month to help you with your grocery budget. You know, when it comes to prices at grocery store chains, we're going to start a consumer watchdog, that, keeps a track of the prices, make sure that we're not getting price gouged. When it comes to, getting to work, we're going to institute the $10 a day daycare that's just ready to go. We're going to get it going, so that when you go into work, you don't have to worry if it's going to cost you money. When it comes to things like ODSP, we're going to double not only that, but also a W to make sure that the most vulnerable in our society can live with dignity. When it comes to things like rent control, we're going to end rent evictions. We're going to end the practice. We're going to tie rent control to the unit to make sure that we end the practice of evicting people so they can bump the rents up. When it comes to a living minimum wage, we are committed to making sure that that happens, and that it's indexed to inflation.
Thank you, NDP candidate James Harris. I believe I've gone through everybody's first round, so now there is an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal or addition if anybody would like to take that opportunity. PC candidate Paul Vickers, go right ahead.
Thanks, Claire. I like to challenge Selwyn and Joel how they plan on cutting taxes to everybody and increasing their payments to everybody. It just seems like the economics, the balance sheet doesn't add up. So someday I'd like to understand how you propose to cut taxes everywhere and then increase spending everywhere and make the budget balance.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Joel Lowhead from the Green Party, go ahead.
Sure. So I was very clear. This isn't money coming from nowhere. This is money that's going to be redirected from the very wealthiest amongst us, who right now are getting rebates on their hydro and not paying their fair share in terms of taxation. Again, the very wealthiest of the society. That money is going to be redirected to the people who are struggling just to live in Doug Ford's Ontario.
Thank you, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Would anyone else like to offer a rebuttal? Selwyn Hicks from the Liberal Party. Go ahead.
Well, I would just respond to say that the money's there. As long as we're not building, luxury spas and dream holes under the 401. You talked about putting money back in our pockets. I think you're referring to the $200 bribe checks that were sent out just before the election. That cost us $3 billion. And by the way, your party didn't have it. They borrowed that money. So that's not the kind of thing that I think people want you to do.
And that's time. Thank you very much, Selwyn Hicks from the Liberal Party. Let's take a break if there's no one else who would like to offer a rebuttal. You are listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. We will be right back with more questions after the break. You're listening to AM 560 CFOS.
Joel, what will
Welcome back. I'm Claire McCormack. You're listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen. Going through questions, and the next question that we have has to do with homelessness. Over 80,000 people in Ontario were homeless in 2024. That's a 25% increase from
people in order for us to retrain them, to get them to be productive people in our communities. It's a real simple solution. It'll take some.
Blue Party candidate Vince Grimaldi. Next is Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. What would you do in your role as a provincial politician to address homelessness long term?
Thanks, Claire. Homelessness is a complex issue, and there is no one side.
Tiny home villages, communal areas, and on-site support services facilitate a sense of community and access to the necessary resources, kind of all in one place. The 12 Neighbors community in Fredericton, New Brunswick provides housing and also integrates services aimed at helping residents transition to stable living conditions. Why can't we do something like that? We have the ability. We need to increase mental health and addiction support. Not all programs are the same, and not all are equal. Not all are really all that helpful. So we need to be treating the individuals, vast majority of these, with untreated mental health issues.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. I believe that's everybody for the first round. Would anybody like to offer a rebuttal or an additional point to that question? Okay.
I can start.
Oh, all right. Go ahead, Selwyn Hicks from the Liberal Party.
I want to get back. Mr. Vickers, you challenged Mr. Lowhead.
Party candidate Joel Lowhead.
And to add to that, I mean, we're talking about $100 billion worth of tunnels under the 401 and a highway across the green belt, right? Highway 413, which is going to
having the clogging of our highways. So this is why we see the reason why we want to improve it. We want to increase our economy.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Would anyone else like to offer a rebuttal? Okay, we will. Go ahead, James Harris, if you'd like.
No, it's fine.
Okay, well, we will take our next break. You're listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce on AM 560 CFOS. Candidate Paul Vickers. Next is Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. The question is, what are your thoughts on the proposed TC Energy pumped storage facility in Meaford?
So noteworthy is the fact that this project was twice declined by the independent electricity system operator, and it's only going forward because of Doug Ford's intervention. This is really the PC party pumped storage facility. I cannot endorse the PSP project as it currently stands. There are too many unanswered questions for me. The following is an excerpt from a letter I sent out a few days ago setting out my position on this project. It reads, I'm skeptical of the value of the pump storage plant proposal. I would insist that any additional provincial investment in moving it forward comes at the expense of ensuring that there is no issues or questions remaining from the previous phase. I would insist that every next step, the community remains engaged and aware of the full scope and impact of the project. I personally would champion the absolute need for this project to have to meet the highest standards environmentally, and that the project actually has a benefit to the residents of Meaford and Ontarians alike. My no will be most easily found by that standard. I believe it is the job of this project to prove that it works, and that it's not our job to prove that it doesn't. We will play host to the facility if it becomes operational, and that can only happen if its operation is a benefit to the residents of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next is Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. The question is, what are your thoughts on the proposed TC Energy pumped storage facility in Meaford?
So first off, there's very tenuous conditional support from the local municipalities, 3 local municipalities, but there are 7 municipalities that are opposed to this project, and for good reason. This is a sweetheart deal between Doug Ford's Ministry of Energy and a $100 billion company from Alberta and Texas, TC Energy, a fossil fuel company at that. This is going to tie us to a fossil fuel giant for energy production for a century. It's going to make it more difficult for us to move towards genuine renewable, which is where the technology elsewhere in the world is going. It means that 10, 15 years from now, if you would like to have solar panels on your roof of your farm, your barn, your house, it's going to be incredibly difficult to do that because we're going to have to be paying for this $7 billion project, which is, again, a private deal between Doug Ford's PCs and a $100 billion fossil fuel company. It's a very bad deal for our region. It's a very bad deal for Ontario, and it's the very bad deal that Doug Ford loves to make.
Thank you, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Next is NDP candidate James Harris. What are your thoughts on the proposed TC Energy pumped storage facility in Meaford?
I think quite often when we've moved ahead with projects like this, we've neglected to include, the indigenous land protectors in the process as we do these sorts of things. And so anything that we do, we need to make sure that Saugeen Ojibwe Nation is on board. And to that end, I saw that they put a letter out there in late January where they're excited to be able to start doing an environmental process studies, and I'm right there with them. I think if we're gonna, we need to make sure that any environmental assessment is absolutely rigorous, has to be transparent. Local stakeholders need to have a chance to have their say, to have their concerns put out there and their concerns addressed. And to that end, I have concerns about what's gonna happen if TC Energy isn't able to make the kind of returns on investment that they expect, and this sort of thing is abandoned. Who's going to be left holding the bag when it comes to cleanup? Is the municipalities? I don't think so. These sorts of things are the kind of concerns that I absolutely have and need to be addressed before we go. Like, I want to swim in a Georgian Bay that has fish in it, and I'm concerned that the proposals that they're making with regards to protecting the local ecology, might not be enough. So I'm definitely looking forward to these rigorous environmental assessments, and if we can't satisfy those, then we just can't move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, NDP candidate James Harris. Next is Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. What are your thoughts on the proposed TC Energy pumped storage facility in Meaford?
Well, thank you, Claire. Firstly, I have great concerns regarding the safety issue at the tank range. This is the Meaford tank range area. My dad had 2 cousins killed by a mortar shell. Now, I know that was many years ago, but how safe is the tank range really for workers? Anybody get off the beaten path? There's a concern there for me. Also, of course, the rigorous environmental assessments. I think the money could be better spent on decentralized power. And maybe I'm simplistic here, but hydroelectric power is proven and reliable. We have water sources in this riding, Saugeen River, Beaver River, that could support small hydro projects, keeps it close by, keeps transportation and all of those things, everything close by, and they're very low operating costs, cheap to maintain. Potential project, small hydro turbines at existing dams on the Saugeen and some of the falls. We used to have those things, so refurbishing those, maybe that's the way to go.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. Next is Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. The question is, what are your thoughts on the proposed TC Energy pumped storage facility in Meaford?
Although the New Blue Party is pro-New Blue policies using water, power, and nuclear, this project, I proved the last election with TC's own numbers that it doesn't work. It doesn't even come close to the mathematics that they came to, and I think our Green Party member here remembers that, and so does our Liberal member. I would tend, over the last 4 years, there's 12 waterways, dams that we closed here. If you outfitted 12 of them, still comes in a third the cost of the TC waterway idea. We can outfit them with brand new turbines, and the benefits could go directly to people instead of big government.
Thank you, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. An opportunity for rebuttals. Paul Vickers from the PC Party.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Joel, can you name the 7 municipalities that are opposed to this project? And second comment I'd like to make is that it doesn't surprise me that the Liberals and Greens are against economic development for this local area. I think it's great if we have a safe project that is proven to help the nuclear industry become more efficiently and to have those dollars spent in this area. I think it's a great thing. And I think you guys should be ashamed of opposing a great project like this.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Would anyone else like to add something? Green Party candidate Joel Lohead.
Right. So this is not going to help with economic development or with a strong local economy. This is going to tie us to more expensive hydro bills going forward, which are bringing up the cost of living for everybody and making it more difficult for us to have a strong local economy. Again, there was no public procurement process for this project. We don't know if this is the most cost-effective way to go about this. It's a sweetheart deal between the PCs and their friends, Doug Ford's friends, and a fossil fuel giant out west. Not fair.
Who are the 7 municipalities, Joel?
I have to look it up.
It's a very pointed question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'll
we can circle back to that as the opportunity is your last question. You can say whatever you want. So we can cover that if you'd like to make more points on it. Okay, does that conclude our question here? Let's take a break. You are listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce on AM 560 CFOS. Welcome back to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. I'm Claire McCormack, and with me today are 6 local candidates. Let's move on to the next question. Municipalities have been calling on the provincial government to review the provincial municipal fiscal framework after years of downloading responsibility onto cities and towns. Towns say they have to increase property taxes in order to keep up with infrastructure needs. What would you support any changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs? And I believe we are starting with Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks.
Well, thank you. The other night after the Katie debate, the PC candidate took issue with me on the fact that downloading is a practice of the Doug Ford government. He challenged me to come up with 1 or 2 examples. Well, Mr. Vickers, here's your proof. An excerpt from a CTV News article on February 14, 2024 reads as follows. More and more, we're seeing the download from the province of healthcare, childcare, and many social services. These costs are rising every year, and municipalities are bearing the brunt of that, said Kate Burns-Gallagher, Executive Director of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. By the way, I was a member of that caucus for 3 years when I was warden. Ms. Burns-Gallagher goes on to say it's a $4 billion number that's been borne by property taxes that can't be sustained. Another example is when I sat on the Board of Health and we saw the funding from the province decreased significantly, leaving the burden on municipalities to pick up the difference. So, Mr. Vickers, I think you now have some education about provincial downloading. Bottom line, there's only one taxpayer. When the province downloads on municipality, they're left with no choice but to increase taxes or to cut services or both. So as soon after the election, I'm elected as MPP, I'll be setting up a meeting with Warden Charbonneau and Warden Mastroff, I'm mispronouncing her name, Mastrosoff, my apologies, to establish a good working relationship so that I can better understand their challenges and priorities.
Time. Thank you. Next, we have Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. The short version of the questions: would you support any changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs?
Right. So 2 nights ago, Mr. Vickers did say that there is no provincial downloading. There has been no provincial downloading. But as Mr. Hicks just said, there absolutely is. And I sit on council. I'm an elected official. I'm elected to council in municipality Grey Highlands. And I can tell you there absolutely has been downloading over the last 30 years. And this did continue through the Liberal win era, by the way. So we need to re-upload those. The province needs to take care of provincial responsibilities, transportation, bridges, rural roads. Right now, municipalities are paying for healthcare. They're actually hiring physicians in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. That's a provincial responsibility. Absolutely, the province needs to step up. If they don't, the taxation burden is simply going to get shifted to the municipal ledger, which is what's happening right now. And it's less efficient and it's more expensive. So the Greens would absolutely create steady rural funding so that the province takes its fair share back once again.
Thank you, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Next is James Harris for the NDP. The question is, would you support changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs?
Yeah, the NDP is committed to uploading services where it makes sense, for us to be looking after it on the provincial level and making sure that, on the municipal level that they're able to do their job as well. When it comes to it, we're going to establish a fair, predictable, consistent formula-based infrastructure funding model that ensures that rural communities can build and maintain infrastructure like roads, bridges, sewers, that sort of thing. We're going to upload back financial responsibility for provincially owned connecting link highways whose costs were unfairly downloaded onto municipalities 3 decades ago, forcing disproportionately high costs onto rural taxpayers. We're also going to do the same thing, upload back financial responsibility for municipal housing and shelter programs while maintaining locally focused delivery by municipal service managers.
Thank you, James Harris from the NDP. Next is Anne Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda Party. Would you support changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs?
Thanks, Claire. Absolutely, I'd support those changes. Ontario municipalities fund over 50% of infrastructure costs compared to 30% in other provinces. So the least we should be doing is having some equality here between the provinces. So why is Ontario underfunding the municipalities? That's the first question. And there is a need for the province here to stand up. Doug Ford needs to stand up and to provide funding for local roads, bridges, and infrastructure. We need that in our municipalities, and the individual municipalities should not be responsible for all of this.
Thank you, Anne Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda Party. Next is Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Would you support changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs?
I would, yes. But again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. It's provincial tax relocation and responsible government. That's all you need here.
Thank you very much, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is PC candidate Paul Vickers. Would you support changes to how the province contributes funding to local projects and programs?
Thanks, Claire. In Canada, we have unique levels of government, each with a different responsibility and services. This creates many opportunities to work together, but also creates some challenges. I know this firsthand, having been a municipal councillor in the municipality of Meaford. Around the council table, complicated discussions were held at budget time. We determined which projects get funded, which services need improvements, and most importantly, how much can we spend on these projects and services. It creates for a lively discussion. Our PC team has realized that many municipalities, especially our small and rural ones, are dealing with financial pressures. While a true discussion on the provincial municipal financial framework would need to include the federal government, much of the funding for things like social services come from the federal level. We have done things to help alleviate these pressures for municipalities. One key program is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, which provides direct access assistance to municipalities with limited property tax base, like our small and rural ones in Grey County. We increased this funding by $100 million to help them provide core services to their residents, including roads, bridges, community centers, and core services. Annually, this program provides over $14 million in support in our local communities in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. This is above and beyond existing grants and programming already in place from the province.
Thank you. PC candidate Paul Vickers. I believe we've gone through everybody for that question. So if anybody would like to add anything to it, offer a rebuttal, now's your opportunity. Go ahead, Green Party candidate Joel Lohead.
So Mr. Vickers says that governments, the different levels of government need to work together, but unfortunately the provincial government is not working with municipal governments right now. The cost of infrastructure is going up and the amount of funding from the province is going down. It's going in the wrong direction. And the lively discussion we're having at the municipal table right now is which bridges are we going to be closing in municipalities across rural Ontario? And that's happening today because of a lack of provincial funding in the infrastructure in rural Ontario and Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, while they continue to fund tens of billions of dollars worth of highways in the GTA.
And that is time. Thank you very much, Green Party candidate Joel Lohead. Go ahead, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks.
So, Mr. Vickers, you were a municipal councillor, but you didn't know about provincial downloading. Do you now agree that it exists?
Okay, you have the opportunity to respond to that if you'd like, PC candidate Paul Vickers.
Yep, thank you, Claire. I was on council and I realized the issues we had in municipal council, but I realized also that the provincial government was there to help us. The Municipal Partnership Fund was a great example of how municipalities were allowed increased access, and this was increased after the Doug Ford government got in.
You told me it didn't exist.
It was
and
decreased.
You challenged me.
You
told me it didn't exist, and you challenged me.
It was decreased. It was decreased during the Liberal time.
But you now agree,
and
that's
no, I do not.
That is time.
Okay.
That's all the time we have for that question, unless someone else would like to offer a rebuttal. Okay. We should take another break. When we come back, you'll be listening to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario election all candidates debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce on AM 560 CFOS. Welcome back to the Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound Ontario Election All Candidates Debate, brought to you by the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. I'm Claire McCormack. I've got 6 candidates with me here today. We're moving right along to the next question, starting with Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. What changes would you like to see made in the education system?
Thank you, Claire. And I love this question because what's more important than our young people in our education system? And in Doug Ford's Ontario, each student is getting $1,500 a year less than they should. And when I talk to educators, which I have across this riding, I hear that they're underfunded, they're overworked. When we do build new schools, they're immediately overcrowded. Portables pop up beside them. So these are the results of underfunding our education system. The Green Party would immediately reinstate the funding that we need to our education system. We would make sure that we have the teachers and the teachers' assistants, especially for those students with disabilities and special needs. Again, this is a question of priorities. Don't tell me that the money exists when you're going to build $100 billion worth of fantasy highways in the GTA.
Thank you very much, Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Next, we have NDP candidate James Harris. The question is, what changes would you like to see made in the education system?
Thank you. I think, with 7 years of the Ford government, we've seen cuts to education funding that basically amounts to $1,500 per student since 2018. That's too much. We need to reverse the cuts to education that have happened under Doug Ford. We need to stop fighting with our educators. We need to work with them to find solutions. And we will invest in a new needs-based funding formula to get class sizes smaller, get EAs back in the classroom. We're going to review the education funding formula through a rural lens, ensuring that bused students have equitable access to extracurricular activities, mental health supports, teacher, librarians.
And that's time. Thank you very much, James Harris, NDP candidate. Next is Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda candidate Ann Gillies. The question is, what changes would you like to see made in the education system?
Well, this certainly is a passion of mine. So I would have complete education reform. Doug Ford lied. He promised to repeal the radical WIN sex ed. Instead, he extended it. We have created the greatest mental health crisis in our children that Canada has ever known. We're creating confusion, loss of identity, family division, loneliness, hopelessness. My last book was called Ultimate Deception, The Truth of Gender Affirming Care. And it's all about research that condemns the medicalization, mutilation, and abuse of these children. We need to stop all radical sex ed. We need to have money, the dollar amount for each child, follow the child, not what we have in this province right now. Parents need options. There are parents just pulling their kids out. Homeschooling has gone up 50% in the last 3 years. We need to have the money follow the child. By the way, how many genders are there, Paul? How many sexes? For all the rest of you, there are 2 sexes. We need to quit lying to kids. Separation from biological reality leaves these children rudderless. The Ministry of Education has allocated lots of money for special education grants and creating and teaching DEI. I'd get rid of DEI tomorrow if I was elected.
And that's time. Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. Next is Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. The question is, what changes would you like to see made in the education system?
I'm going to side with Ann here. I totally agree with her on almost every topic she touched on. I would add, I would like to see the Safe School Act put in place again. And I'd like to see parents have a bigger say in what they're getting taught in schools.
Thanks, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. The question is, what changes would you like to see made in the education system?
Thanks, Claire. When I think about what I want to see in our future education system, a lot of these are already underway. I value an education system that prepares students for all career outcomes, especially our skilled trades. Our skilled trades have become understaffed in all sectors. The PC team has helped address this by implementing a mandatory credit in the technologies, which are classes focused on trades for the 9th grade students. We have also introduced a back to the basics approach, focused on core classes like English, mathematics, and science. Finally, we have revamped the math curriculum to focus on practical skills and real-world problem solving. This approach responds to what we have been hearing from industry and post-secondary institutions alike. We have been making the necessary investments to make this a reality. By making the necessary reforms to our education system, over time, we will see a workforce that reflects these values and our desires as Ontarians to have our children prepared for the jobs of tomorrow.
Thank you, PC candidate Paul Vickers. Next is Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. What changes would you like to see made in the education system?
So class sizes are up and test scores are down. Per pupil funding is the lowest it's been in recent history. Some schools are overcrowded and many schools have been neglected and need repairs or upgrades. Kids sit for years on a wait list for autism assessments and support services. There are nearly 5,000 fewer teachers. This while enrollment is expected to climb and the number of teachers requirement is on the rise. The Ontario PC Party hasn't even come out with an education platform. It's another sign that they don't care about the education system. The Ontario government passed Bill 124 in 2019, which imposed a 1% cap on compensation increases for all employees in public sector unions. The courts found that to be unconstitutional, and yet the government appealed it and lost. The cost in legal fees alone was $4.3 million. And additionally, Mr. Ford's government had to pay the public sector workers more than $6 billion in compensation. The Ontario Liberal Party cares about providing quality public education. We're going to fix the things that Doug Ford has been ignoring, like school repairs and new schools. Education will be put back at the center of our economic plan. Without high-quality education, our economy suffers. Remember, it was Ontario Liberals who introduced full-day kindergarten, reduced class sizes, and raised teachers' pay.
Thank you, Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next, are we on to rebuttals? Okay, it looks like Green Party candidate Joel Lohead would like to go. Go ahead.
So, thank you. And I have to address what Anne said, because that is such painful and dangerous rhetoric when we get into that type of territory. Education and healthcare need to come from a place of empathy and understanding and compassion. I'm committed to that personally. The Green Party of Ontario is committed to that as well.
Yeah, can I just speak to that as well?
Go ahead, James Harris.
Sex is bimodal, not binary. And, we need to make sure that we include people who don't fit into your binary worldview. When it comes to, if there's accurate language out there to describe somebody's internal existence that's accurate, and you keep that language from them because you're uncomfortable with it, that to me is tantamount to abuse.
That was James Harris, NDP candidate. Next is Anne Gillies, candidate for the Stop the New Sex Ed agenda.
Thank you. I just want to say to you that we have more than just a small percentage of children in the education system, and we must address all of the children. We have to quit lying. Children are not born in the wrong body. This is not against children of any kind, but we are talking about selective minorities that we are focusing on.
And that's time. That was Anne Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed agenda. Would anybody else like to offer a rebuttal? Selwyn Hicks, Liberal candidate.
I wasn't going to speak, but I feel like I have to. When you say you're going to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion,
absolutely.
What's wrong with diversity? What's wrong with equity? And what's wrong with inclusion?
Can I just give?
There's just the one rebuttal. You can use that for your final statement, though, if you'd like to add something. We're going to do that next. Would anybody else like to add a final comment or rebuttal on that question? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm going to leave that one alone.
All right. Let's move on to the last question, because we are rapidly running out of time here. And that is, why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound? And I believe we are starting with NDP candidate James Harris. A minute, 30 seconds to add your last thoughts there.
Yeah, everywhere I go, people are concerned about healthcare. So I'm running to make sure that people have access to a doctor through family health teams. And we're going to get the ball rolling on those within the first 100 days, not make you guys wait for years. When it comes to affordable housing, we want to make sure that people are able to live to access, affordable housing. We're going to do that through the Homes Ontario program. When it comes to education, we're going to reverse the cuts. We're going to work with our educators and make sure that our children get the best possible future. And when it comes to, being able to make sure that families who are struggling to put food on the table, we're going to make sure that they don't have to worry as much. And that's what we get with the Ontario NDP. A party which is compassionate, which is here for all Ontarians. And I hope on February 27th, you'll give me an opportunity to go to Queen's Park to fight for you guys.
That was James Harris, candidate for the Ontario NDP. Next is Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. You've got a minute 30 seconds for your final thoughts on why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound or anything else.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to answer Selwyn. First, here we have DEI. Let me give you a description. It's divisive, exclusionary, and hateful. It's creating an angry society, angry workplace, and anger within our children. It's creating something we don't need. We need to treat people with kindness. Kindness is truth. Truth is kind to young people. I want to give you 4 pillars that I stand with. Parents and families. Parents have the right to raise their children according to their own views and values. Also, faith and freedom. We need to elect those who serve us in civil government. They must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Then health and security. The laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of all citizens, especially the most vulnerable among us, our children. Tax and taxation, or debt and taxation. It is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. We must learn to be frugal in some areas.
Thank you, Ann Gillies from the Stop the New Sex Ed Agenda. Next, we have Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. The question is, why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
I was like every other Canadian. I'll sit back and I'll wait for it to fix itself. After 60 years, I decided, you know what? This isn't working. I allowed you to listen to the establishment 4 here. The rhetoric, the numbers, the nonsense. This province needs stable government, common sense government, and the New Blue Party is here to give it to you. Jim, our party leader, was first put out because he brought out the Axe the Carbon Tax, and his wife, Belinda, got kicked out for not having a COVID shot. How ridiculous is that, our parliament? I'm here to put common sense back into our community.
Thank you, Vince Grimaldi from the New Blue Party. Next is Progressive Conservative candidate Paul Vickers. The question is, why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
Thanks, Claire. I am someone who has worked through many challenges that have been thrown my way, whether that be in business, farming, or municipal politics. I understand the value of hard work, and I want to bring my lived experiences to Queen's Park. These experiences in council and in agriculture will help inform policies impacting our communities, just like Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. I also believe in making sure government works for you and that rural voices are heard at the highest level. I am someone who is not afraid to take a stand for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. And if elected, I'm committed to being our region's strongest ambassador. If you vote for me on February 27th, this is what you are getting. Someone who wants to represent our interests and our economy. Someone who will take a stand for you. That is what I am passionate about and why I want to be your next MPP.
Thank you, Paul Vickers, Progressive Conservative candidate. Next is Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
So 3 years ago, I was in the same forum, but it was a much different circumstance. The PC candidate was Rick Byers, and he was saying all the same things that Paul is saying he would do to make things better for the riding. Rick won, and those things never happened. It didn't get better, it got worse. Joe Lohead was an independent candidate who saw mainstream political parties as being incapable of fixing our problems. His mantra was that we should vote for none of the above, but now he's the above that he rallied against. I understand our politics can change, but it ought to give people pause when they look at a candidate who is capable of a 180-degree shift in their views simply to win an election. 18 years ago, he fell in love with the Green Party, but 3 years ago, he ran against them. So which is it? This is my third time running as an Ontario Liberal. I have 16 years experience in elected office as a councillor, deputy mayor, and warden. With Selwyn Hicks, you know what you're getting. I'm running because I believe we can do better here in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. We deserve better. We need an advocate. We need a leader. We need experience. Electing me on February 27th would send a strong message to Queen's Park that we will not be ignored.
That is Liberal candidate Selwyn Hicks. Next is Green Party candidate Joel Lowhead. Why are you running to be the MPP of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound?
I'm running to be MPP because I love this province. I love Ontario. I love my community. I love Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. And yes, I did run the last election for none of the above because we need electoral reform desperately. And that was the platform I used to talk about it. Politics is broken, and that's what I hear most often right now. People are fed up with the Conservatives. They're fed up with the Liberals. They're fed up even with the NDP. They're just fed up with the way things are done in this province, and they have every right to be. The difference between me and the other major candidates here is that I vote independently at Queen's Park because that's what the Greens do. If you vote for one of the other candidates, you get their GTA leaders in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. If you vote for me, you get your voice at Queen's Park. That's why I'm running for the Greens, because I want to champion this riding for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound.
Thank you, Joel Lowhead, Green Party candidate. I believe that takes us around the table. So thank you very much for joining me today. It takes a lot of energy and thought, so we really appreciate it. Now, if any of you listeners missed any part of this, you can find it in podcast form on our Bayshore Broadcasting News website. And tomorrow it will play again. Yes, it'll play in the Saturday. And that is all the time we have for today. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks to Bayshore Broadcasting.
Yeah, thank you.
You're listening to AM 560 CFOS.